Good morning, everyone, and welcome to CAPCOG's Criminal Justice Grant Workshop. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to attend this workshop. My name is Karina Trevino, and I am the Community Development Coordinator here at CAPCOG. Today, we're going to be discussing the criminal justice grants from the Office of the Governor's Plan Year 2025 funding cycle. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into the agenda. CAPCOG currently prioritizes 4 programs that the OOG has. We're going to do a brief breakdown of these programs, and we will also be discussing some new updates to the VOCA program. We will be also going over eligibility for these funding opportunities, keeping you informed on all the requirements that you may not be aware of. Thirdly, we're going to cover policies and processes specifically related to CAPCOG. This will be a comprehensive discussion on how to navigate the application process and discover what role CAPCOG takes. And lastly, we're going to be discussing grant application tips and resources. That way, everyone has the best chance of displaying their best application and optimizing their chances of funding. So as mentioned, let's go ahead and jump into funding opportunities. CAPCOG currently prioritizes 4 OOG criminal justice programs, the first being Criminal Justice Grant Program, or DJ. It also has been called JAG in the past. Next, we also prioritize Juvenile Justice and Truancy Prevention Grant Program. Then, General Victim Assistance Grant Program, or VOCA. And finally, Violence Against Women Justice and Training Program, or VAWA. So let's go ahead and jump into the Criminal Justice Grant Program. This program aims to promote public safety efforts, crime reduction, and system improvements. Then we also have Juvenile Justice Truancy Prevention Grant Program. This fund source is open for projects to prevent violence in and around schools and to improve the juvenile justice system by providing mental health services, truancy prevention, and intervention through community-based and school programs. JJ and TP are actually from the same RFA. However, the OOG does break these out to 2 small subcategories after all applications have been submitted, meaning JJ and TP will get their own funds for these programs. I will be displaying some fun information towards the end of this presentation. Next, we're going to be talking about General Victim Assistance Grant Program, or VOCA. VOCA is a fund source that aims to provide services and assistance directly to victims of crime to speed their recovery and aid them through the criminal justice process. Next, we have Violence Against Women Justice and Training Program, or VAWA. This fund source aims for projects that promote a coordinated, multidisciplinary approach to improve the justice system response to violent crimes against women, including domestic violence, sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking. We have a funding update this year concerning the VOCA fund source. Match will be returning. For those that don't recall, VOCA previously had a match requirement. However, due to the pandemic and social distancing restrictions, the match was lifted. This year, the match requirement is 20% of the total project. Please note, the OOG encourages applicants to apply for funds you can easily expend in the grant period. The higher your grant request is, the higher your match requirement is, and the OOG will hold you to that match requirement. Last year, the 30% match requirement returned for VAWA, and will continue this year. Please review the VAWA RFA to determine if the match requirement is required for you. Next, we're going to be talking about where to find the RFAs. I'm going to be doing a quick demo on where to find the requests for applications for these 4 programs. All RFAs are going to be found on the eGrants website. This website's homepage has recently been updated. Let's proceed to eGrants, and then on the right side of the screen, right here, you're going to see a funding opportunities and a drop-down arrow. Click active funding opportunities and you will find a full list. Please note, the OOG has a long list of opportunities. If you have a project that doesn't really fall into one of the 4 programs that we prioritize, there's a good chance that you may find it somewhere else on this list. I highly recommend you review this page often for funding opportunities and updates. Today, we will be focusing on our 4 programs, so let's go ahead and pick up our Criminal Justice Grant Program, and then click Read More. Here's the RFA for the Criminal Justice Program. There is no longer a printer-friendly version of the RFA, unfortunately, so reading on the webpage may be the easiest option. This should be your main document. Please review the RFA. All the questions you may have on eligibility, what is prohibited, and many more may be answered through this document. And that is how you find out your RFA. Next, we're going to be talking about eligibility requirements. We're going to be discussing a brief overview of the eligibility requirements. Please review the RFA for a specific program you are interested in, as they may have special eligibility requirements that you may need to follow. I'm going to be using a lot of terminology throughout this grant workshop, so I want everybody to be on the same page. Let's talk about the first one, OOG, Office of the Governor. This is the granting agency where you guys are seeking funding from. Next, PSO, Public Safety Office. This is the office that handles all the criminal justice grants. CAPCOG. Currently, this workshop is being held by CAPCOG staff. This stands for the Capital Area Council of Governments. We are tasked with prioritizing 4 of the OOG's grant programs. And then this is a term I haven't used yet, CJAC, CAPCOG's Criminal Justice Advisory Committee. This is a committee of 18 members from different criminal justice disciplines around the region. These are the people that will be grading your applications, reviewing your applications, and scoring you guys at the end. So, now that we're all on the same page, we can go ahead and jump into OOG requirements for funding. These requirements are listed on the RFA for various programs. Please refer to your specific program if you have any questions. I would like to note, failure to upload documents to eGrants in a timely manner may delay your application, or it may delay you from getting your money. So try to stay on top of all your submission into eGrants. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your grant manager. First, let's talk about local units of government. So if you're applying for a grant under a local unit of government, such as a city or county, you must comply and be up to date on your cybersecurity training requirements. I know you may be thinking, well, I just did this last year. This is a yearly requirement. Please also remember to upload a copy of your training certification to your eGrants application. Local units of government must also comply with all aspects of programs and procedures related to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security related to illegal aliens in the agency custody. Each local unit of government must download and complete the CEO law enforcement certification and assurance form certifying compliance. Later on in the presentation, I'm going to be showing you where to find this form. On a similar note, applicants operating a law enforcement agency must be current on reporting and completing UCR data to the Texas Department of Public Safety. The OOG actually uses this data and reports it to the federal government in order to get more funds for the state. So you guys completing this is actually going to bring more money to the state. Also, in coordinates with the Texas Government Code, any facility or entity that collects evidence of sexual assault or sex offenses must also participate in the statewide electronic tracking system developed and implemented by the Texas Department of Public Safety. Visit DPS Sexual Assault Evidence Tracking Program website for more information. Let's go ahead and talk about some requirements that all agencies must follow. The first one being all agencies must be registered under the Federal System for Award Management, or SAM, and have a unique entity ID number. This number is going to be very important as you're going to need it to start your application. So my recommendation is to go ahead and log into SAM and locate that number today. Nonprofits, local units of government, and other political subdivisions are going to need to upload a resolution to your grant record. If you are a city or maybe even a county, you may have to take that resolution to City Council or Commissioner's Court, so I recommend jumping on that today as well. Entities receiving funds from the PSO must be located in a county that has an average of 90% or above for both adult and juvenile dispositions. And lastly, some programs may have additional requirements listed in the RFA, so please again review your RFA and make sure you are following all eligibility requirements. Now that you have determined that you are eligible, let's go ahead and talk about how to get your application started. All applications must be submitted through the Office of the Governor's eGrants website, egrants.gov.texas.gov. To apply for a grant, the first thing you must do is create or log into your eGrants account. If you have an account, I recommend after this workshop logging in. Passwords expire every 3 months. It's best to reset your password now, that way you don't have to worry about contacting the eGrants help desk later. The next thing you have to do is identify your grant officials. Each grant must have a project director, financial officer, and authorized official. No person can serve in more than one role. The authorized official is usually a county judge, mayor, city manager, nonprofit, executive director, etc. This person must be responsible for certifying the eGrants application, so it's very important that they are aware that they need to log in and click certify when an application is complete. Next, financial officer. This person must either be an employee or a board member and should be the chief financial officer, an auditor, treasurer, anything of that sort. And then third, project director. This project director must be an employee of the grantee agency. I recommend the project director be someone that's involved in the project. This person should know the full details. This person is also the first person that a grant manager may call with any issues. So having somebody very aware of your project is going to be the project director. These users all must create their individual eGrants account. Please ensure if they have an account that the logins and passwords are up to date. Please go ahead and jump ahead of this and make sure everybody has a login and knows their password. After creating or logging into eGrants, you will notice that the program is organized through tabs. To begin your application, you're going to select the Apply tab. After you select Apply, the system will guide you through a process. A useful document to have nearby is the eGrants Guide to Creating an Application. Later on in this presentation, I will be showing you where to locate that document. Please note it is important to provide yourself plenty of time to complete this application. Applications are due February 8th, 2024. Asking for assistance on the due date is not recommended. Next, let's go over some reminders. First reminder, all applications must be submitted through the eGrants website. If you need to create an account, please create one today. Existing users should go ahead and try their passwords today as they expire every 90 days. Next, identify 3 individuals that will serve as your authorized official, financial officer, and project director, and ensure they all have eGrants accounts. Lastly, the authorized official login will be the only login that can submit your application. Please ensure that they have the proper credentials. And lastly, applications are due February 8, 2024 at 5 p.m. Please make sure you have your applications in before then. Next item we're going to cover on this agenda is CAPCOG's policy and processes. As an applicant, not only do you have to follow the OOG's eligibility and requirements, but CAPCOG has their own requirements for scoring of your application. In this section, I'm going to walk you through our processes so everyone here gets the opportunity to increase their score and maximize their chances of funding. So let's talk about CAPCOG's role in the grant prioritization process. I wanted to give a brief overview of our organization and how it fits into this process, because it's a bit confusing. You're applying for an Office of the Governor's Criminal Justice Grant, but you are sitting in a CAPCOG workshop. Well, here's a breakdown of how CAPCOG works with the OOG to get grants funded. Through an interlocal agreement, the OOG asked CAPCOG to establish the Criminal Justice Advisory Committee, the CJAC. This committee is made up of 18 committee members from different disciplines, and based on their individual expertise, the CJAC will review application, project summary sheets, and presentations. They then score and prioritize the grant applications. To help the CJAC make informed decisions, CAPCOG staff provides plan year documents such as score sheets, project summary sheets, timelines, and other documents that may get approved or modified by the CJAC. CAPCOG staff is also charged with distributing information related to the grant process to potential applicants. A lot of our information can be found on our CAPCOG website, and also we have an email distribution list. If you would like to get on that list, please contact me at the end of the presentation. You also may not know this, but CAPCOG staff provides technical assistance to applicants or interested grantees. So if you have any technical assistant questions, feel free to reach out to me. Finally, after scores and rankings are voted on by the CJAC and Executive Committee, the CAPCOG staff will submit their scores and grant prioritization to the Office of the Governor's staff. Finally, after scores and rankings are voted on by the CJAC and Executive Committee, the CAPCOG staff will be the one to submit those scores to the Office of the Governor at the end of the process. Another thing CAPCOG staff focuses on is creating a tentative timeline for the plan year. The dates and such are tentative and can change at any point. We are fully based on how the OOG releases information. Here is a list of items that are coming up for you guys to pay special attention to. The first one being February 8th. Your eGrants application is due February 8th along with your project summary sheet. Project summary sheet is a CAPCOG form that the CJAC will use alongside your application to get a better understanding of your project. We will go more into detail about this later. Next, March 11th through the 13th. Ideally, this is going to be the time the applicants will select their presentation time. For those of you who have participated in our process in the past, you know that applicants present their projects to the CJAC. In previous years, CAPCOG would create a schedule and assign times for each presentation. This year, we wanted to give applicants the opportunity to select their desired time to present the application to the CJAC. The link to sign up for a presentation will be distributed via email to applicants. This will be similar to signing up for a hair appointment or signing up for a dentist appointment. It's going to be all online. The reason it says ideally is because we would like to release a presentation schedule 2 weeks prior to the presentation dates of April 1st through the 5th. However, as mentioned, this is deeply dependent on the OOG's release applications to CAPCOG. As soon as we get notified of the applications, we will send out the link to all of you. Next, April 1st through the 5th is the presentation week to the CJAC. This is when all the scoring and prioritizing will occur. May 8th, 2024 is when all of the funding recommendations go to our executive committee for them to vote on. All CJAC recommendations go to our executive committee for approval. If you would like to see a breakdown of the CAPCOG application process, please refer to the handout called Workshop Reminders. It is located in front of you if you are presently in the in-person class, or if you are online, it's going to be located in the chat box. Here's what the official timeline actually looks like. It can be found on the CAPCOG website, or you can scan the QR code to find it. Now that we have discussed the timeline, let's talk about some key changes from last year. First, the workshop attendance, project summary sheet submission, and presentation are all optional this year. However, it carries a significant weight in the application score. What that means is 10 points is associated with a project summary sheet submission and workshop attendance, while 20 points is associated for the presentation. This is very different from last year, because if you did not submit a project summary sheet or attend our workshop last year, you received a $0 funding recommendation. Next, let's talk about local government applicants. As you may recall, in previous years, all local government applicants had a 3-year decreasing funding ratio for a continuation project. This year, this has been extended to 4 years. We will discuss it later on in the presentation, but so far, these are the most significant changes from last year to this year. A project summary sheet should be submitted by applicants for each application. Project summary sheets are not submitted through eGrants with the rest of the application. They are submitted directly to CAPCOG. The project summary sheet is a form prepared by CAPCOG. It includes several questions about the project, including who and what areas will be served and what other sources of funding that will be used. The CJAC will review the answers to the questions alongside all other information about the project submitted with the application. Although submitting the project summary sheet is not required, it is highly recommended, since the application will receive 10 points if a completed form is submitted. To download a blank project summary sheet form, visit the Criminal Justice page of the CAPCOG website and click the Project Summary Sheet button. On the next page, click the Download PSS Form button. This page also includes instructions on completing and submitting the project summary sheet. Completed project summary sheets must be submitted prior to the application deadline of 5 p.m. Thursday, February 8th, 2024. We have mentioned presentations a few times already, so let's go ahead and do a deep dive into this topic. In order for the CJAC to get a better understanding of your project, they opt to allow a representative from each organization to come and discuss their project in person. That way, if any member has any questions, they can ask the presenter. During the presentation, the CJAC members will also assign scores to each application, right then and there. A representative from the agency who is familiar with the application and the proposed project should attend the presentation meeting. The applicant's representative will be given 5 minutes to present information about the application to the CJAC and must be prepared to answer questions at the end. Let's talk about Plan Year 2025 Criminal Justice Priorities. This year, CAPCOG released a regional priority survey that ran from October 2nd to October 13th, 2023. It contained 4 topics of discussion: juvenile justice and school-based system, criminal justice system, mental health and substance abuse, and victims of crime. 1 priority was selected per topic of discussion. The priorities based on the survey are violence prevention, training for law enforcement, counseling/therapy services, and crisis services. Scoring-wise, priorities are worth 10 points. Based on the CJAC members' individual review, they will assign you a score from 0 to 10 if you reach any of these priorities. Now let's talk about some of the CAPCOG policies that's going to govern this application process. First, we're going to talk about a goal of the CJAC. The CJAC's goal is to address regional criminal justice needs by encouraging the establishment of beneficial programs and continuing funding for them, with the goal of progressing them towards self-sufficiency. Meaning these programs should be used as a form of seed money to start up a new project in the region so the wealth and programs are spread throughout the region. With this goal in mind, many of our policies in place are set to complement that goal. In other words, the main CJAC goal is to use this funding as a form of seed money, starting multiple projects and then having them move towards self-sufficiency. Next, let's talk about some application limitations. Applicants are limited to 3 applications per funding source. Any applicants that submit more than 3 applications in a fund source will receive a score of 0 for the 4th application. Applicants will go ahead and self-select their primary application, secondary application, and tertiary application. Local government applicants are now limited to a 4-year cycle limit. This is to promote long-term project sustainability. In CAPCOG's Plan Year 2025 policy statement, we have defined some new terms for you guys, and here are a couple of them. One of them being new projects. Applicants are submitting a project for the first time in Plan Year 2025. Next, continuation projects. These are projects that were funded in the previous plan year, serve the same applicant, same target group, similar scope of work, similar services offered as determined by the CJAC. So this is any continuation project. And lastly, progress projects. This is a continuation project that received funding in plan year 2021 or an earlier plan year. Progress projects are the projects that have aged out of this 4-year cycle. To better clarify, let's take a look at this chart. All projects in their first year, or new projects, are eligible to receive 100% of their ask. This does not guarantee they are going to get 100% of their ask. They are just eligible to receive 100%. In the second year, they are eligible to receive 80% of their first year of funding from the OOG. So what that means is if a project was funded $100,000 in the first year, the second year they are eligible to receive $80,000. In the third year, they will be eligible to receive $60,000. And then it's going to go down to $40,000. So to recap, in your first year, you are eligible to receive a 100% funding recommendation for your ask. However, your second year, you are down 80% of your first year of funding. Third year, 60% of your first year of funding. Fourth year, 40% of your first year of funding. 100, 80, 60, 40. Next, let's talk about scoring and how to maximize your scoring results. This year's application score is going to be composed of 2 parts, an objective score and a discretionary score. First, let's talk about the objective score. The objective score is going to have 2 components which are completely dependent on your performance during the application process and submitting a material. Objective scores are all or nothing. So as mentioned earlier, 0 or 10 points for an application workshop attendance. Everybody that is in this chat or in this room now has 10 points towards their application. Congratulations. Next, 0 to 10 points for submission of a project summary sheet. Applicants are not required to submit a project summary sheet, however, it is associated with 10 points. This note at the bottom is to remind you that scores below a 70 will receive a funding recommendation of $0. So 10 points may not seem like a lot, but if you do these 2 things, you already have 20 points and you just need 50 more. The next part is the discretionary scores, and this is broken down into 3 components, which are all dependent upon the applicant's performance. The first one being 0 to 10 points for regional priorities. All applications that are forwarded to the CJAC will be scored and eligible up to 10 points for the regional priorities based on the individual CJAC member. 0 to 50 points will be awarded for the written application. Again, all applications are forwarded and the CJAC member will rate your application on a score from 0 to 50. And lastly, 0 to 20 points will be allocated for your project presentation. And this again will be based on the individual CJAC member. And again, the note at the bottom is to remind you that applications that received below a 70 will receive a funding recommendation of $0. So please come and present your projects to the CJAC. Here's a look at the score sheets that the CJAC members will be utilizing to grade every single application. And these will be available on the CAPCOG's website if you would like to take a deeper look. Now that we've talked about scoring, another thing that the CJAC considers while scoring all applications is a regional budget estimate. These grants are competitive. However, the OOG does allocate a certain estimate of funds they expect each COG to receive per funding category. This estimate was provided to CAPCOG in March and is reflective of a last year. We do not get this year's numbers until March of this year. So why do these estimates matter, and why does the CJAC consider them? Well, if you look at juvenile justice, there's about $236,000 that CAPCOG region is expected to receive for that fund source. If the CJAC is reviewing a project that is seeking $200,000, taking essentially all the RBE for the fund source, they may consider other options. They may ask to only award half the award, or they can say, hey, this is a great project, let's go ahead and fund it all. For the last item on the agenda, grants, tips, and resources, we're going to be covering some general tips and resources I've collected over the past few years. These tips come from the CJAC themselves, or overall might just be grant writing information you may not be aware of. eGrants now has a guide and resource page on their website. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, I do recommend the guide to creating an application while creating your actual application. When you get awarded, the guide to grants is great for grant management. And I'm going to go ahead and show you where to locate these resources right now. First, let's proceed to the eGrants website, egrants.gov.texas.gov. And then from the home page, you are going to select the resource button in the top right corner. From there, a drop-down box will appear and you will select Guidance. Under Guidance, you will scroll down to Application Resources, and the application guide is the first one there. On that same screen in the right-hand side, you should see a button that says Forms. If you click there, all the forms that we mentioned earlier, such as the CEO Law Enforcement Certification Form and the resolution from a governing body, is located in this area. Now let's go over some overall grant management items. Please note these grants are cost reimbursement grants, meaning if your project is funded, your agency will spend the money first and request reimbursement from the PSO after. Please note the projected performance period is from 10/01/2024 to 9/30/2025, and sometimes the OOG is delayed on releasing award statements. Please note all expenses must be approved by the OOG prior to purchase. This is to ensure all items are eligible. And lastly, financial and progress reporting is required for these grants. The biggest tip that the CJAC provided was having a cost breakdown. And here in this example below, I've included a scenario where the city of CAPCOG is requesting 5 laptops at the cost of $2,000 per unit for a total of $10,000. The laptops are going to be used in officers' patrol vehicles, and the cost will include a docking station, antenna, and power adapter. With these 10 laptops, the city can now utilize 10 unused patrol vehicles. This example does a really good job of providing the who, what, when, where, and why. Along with that, it's providing a cost breakdown and telling the reader that we can now utilize some things that we haven't been utilizing before. As mentioned earlier, the CJAC really appreciates solving a problem. And with that comes providing a strong problem statement. Here's a bad example. The city needs 2 fire trucks because ours are old. It's very short, 1. 2, it doesn't give the full picture. Here's a good example. Our firefighter station needs 2 new trucks. With these extra trucks, we can decrease the response time for our 3,000 population by 20%, from 10 minutes to 8 minutes. This gives an overall picture and it displays the need that the city has. Lastly is giving localized stats, telling us the details that pertain to your organization, city, or county. Try to get as specific as possible. Telling us localized stats gives us the big story of your problem you are facing. A good way to find stats is reading your organization's info, such as annual reports, strategic plans, other planning documents, or maybe census.gov or a peer-reviewed journal. Anything that can give us your problem statement and a statistic would be great. Another tip is sending a knowledgeable presenter. This person that comes to present for the CJAC should be closely related to the project and be able to answer all questions, especially on all aspects of the project. Have them informed on the finances, the project performance, and how the project has progressed in the past few years. And lastly, these grants are competitive. If your application is not successful, please do not be discouraged. Learn from the feedback it provided and consider revising your proposal for a future application. I would like to thank you all for your time, and now it's time for questions and answers. Thank you.